Now I want to present everyone with a scenario. Imagine you're in the 3rd grade again. It's a miserable, gloomy day, and it's raining outside. But everything seems just that much better because your principal calls an indoor recess. Those things are great. You and your friends decide that you want to play dollies. And so everyone rushes so that they can be the first pick. And you know exactly which one you want. It's that blue-eyed, golden-haired, gorgeous blonde doll. Now, you don't get it, your friend does, and that's okay. But as you're searching through the bin, you can't find one that you like until someone decides to yell at you, "Hey, you get the ugly one." Only when you look down, you find that the ugly one has dark, curly hair, brown eyes, and olive graham cracker skin. That doll looks like you. And that day was when you realized that you weren't white. That's the day that I did anyway. And it's not really an uncommon story because if you look anywhere on Twitter, you can just find a simple hashtag and someone that shares the same experience. And the one thing that ties it all together is the one question, why didn't nobody tell me I was beautiful earlier? My name's Timmi, and I just want to have this talk with you guys about representation in the media, why it matters, and how Hollywood is really failing people of color. I want to lead in with this one quote by Alice Walker, who is a female artist, a woman of color, and an activist. And her quote is, "The most common way people give their power away is by thinking that they don't have any." A really common narrative when I was a kid was I never found my power. I have it now, but in comparison with many other people of color my own age, the power came later. And it's because nobody showed them. Now, a little bit more about myself. I'm from this cute little area called the Middle East. And more specifically, I'm from this teeny tiny little country called Lebanon. Now, growing up with a Canadian father and a Lebanese mother, I've gotten a lot of insight. My cultural lenses opened up, my worldview expanded. But on top of that, there was inevitably this blurred sense of belonging. And I call that growing up in between. Now, out of the few role models that I did have growing up, I always had my grandmother, my teta. And one of the biggest things that my teta always strove to teach me when I was a kid was to be proud of my heritage. We're Phoenicians, we're travelers. And I really did want to be proud, but apart from my own inner struggles, a lot of my turmoils were coming from what I was seeing. I had no Arab figures on TV. I had nobody to look up to. And part of that was because I was a post-9/11 baby. Everybody was too busy being scared of us rather than accepting the world for what it is. And I credit most of my inner turmoils to my lack of representation in that regard. Now, you might wonder what even is representation anyways. Representation is when diverse characters, actors, and people in general are portrayed in the media in a way that enriches storylines, creates conversations, and doesn't feed into their negative stereotypes. It's positive, and it's really important. One historian and Latino activist really broadened my mindset towards this because he offered an interesting perspective into what it looks like when diversity is lacking. Now, Carlos Cortez, he wrote this book called The Children Are Watching. And in this book, he mentions in an article that he wrote in the 90s about this game show called the $25,000 Pyramid. Now, in this game show, in this specific episode, there were 3 contestants that were asked to relate one word to what they thought of East LA. 2 of these 3 contestants simultaneously said gangs. And you wonder why, but really that's just how media works. You see, when the only portrayals that we see of people of color and marginalized groups in the media is negative, those negative perspectives trickle down into what we believe to be truth. And that truth, inevitably, is fed to kids. It perpetuates the same narratives of everyone's straight, thin is in, blonde is beautiful, honey. And it all fits neatly into this perfect tight little box and present it. And kids have no reason not to accept this perfect little box because they don't know any better. Nobody's told them that they should be different, that it's okay to be different. Imagine the look on little Timmy's face if he had had some other representation than a badly voiced animated version of Aladdin. If he had seen as many brown boys on TV as he had seen condemned on CNN. And Hollywood could really get it right if they wanted to, but they do this funny thing called whitewashing instead. Now, I could preach and explain whitewashing to you, but it's easier if I just show you. Now, I want to focus in on this one character from the movie The Lone Ranger. It was released a couple years ago, and Tonto is who I'm talking about, the lovely man on the left. Now, the original portrayal of Tonto in the 1960s was adapted to this new version, played by Johnny Depp. And the problem that I see here is that Johnny Depp is white. He's not a Native American actor, and he's portraying a Native American character in a gross, stereotypical way. Furthermore, I want to talk about the Prince of Persia, which frankly, to me, looks a lot more like the Prince of Persian occupation, because that is Jake Gyllenhaal. Really? And then we have the Ghost in the Shell, and I'm not going to say a whole lot about this, but I'd rather ask you, do you really think that Scarlett Johansson looks like the type of person that should be saving modern-day Japan? And the reality of it is that it's really damaging. The reason why it's so damaging is because it perpetuates and puts forth new stereotypes, and it reinforces what we know, what we were told to believe. And it takes opportunities away from people who really deserve these acting chops. Actors of color, LGBT actors, disabled actors. It's not fair. But it's not all bad. We can look to the future, and we do have great examples of representation that we can apply. We need more shows like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina that put forth people of color in ways that enrich their plot. They don't create token black characters. They don't create token gay characters. They just allow these people to be. We need more shows like Dear White People that pack a punch, written by black people for everybody, that make you check your privilege. They make you think. And my personal favorite, we need more movies like the recent adaptation of Aladdin. All brown cast, period. All of this should really be normal, and we shouldn't have to ask for it because that's how the world is right now. We're all diverse, unique people. And some of the first steps towards recognizing this is recognizing within ourselves that there is a problem and holding Hollywood, our own thoughts, and our friends accountable. I just wanted to end this TED Talk by reminding you that no matter where you're from, no matter what language you speak, and no matter what social denomination you come from, you are valid. Thank you.